Hi, so this is just a mini lesson on area between curves, but this time we are going to be looking at them in terms of y. So just as a simple translation to y, you can almost just replace x with y if you remember the previous equation, and it reads the integral from a to b f of y minus g of y dy, where f of y is bigger than or equal to g of y. And this pretty much makes sense if you just kind of shift it into y. The only thing I'm going to note before we get onto our example is that we need to remember that they are functions of y, or x in terms of y. So we'd have like x equals f of y, or x equal to g of y. So when we're deciding which one is bigger than the other, we're actually looking at their x values and not their y values. So for example 1, we have the functions x equals y squared and x equal to y. And I'll just label them real quick. This blue one is y, and the red one is y squared. So now we need to decide what is our a and b, or our bounds. And since we're looking at y, and we're trying to find this region right here, we need to look at the y shift between this point and that point. And as you'll see, it's just 1, and they range from y equal to 0 to y equal to 1. So we can say that a equals 0 and b equals 1. And then for our functions, we need to decide which one is bigger than the other, but remember it's in terms of x. So let's say I'm just going to highlight a little vertical bar right here. So at this y value, which is actually y equals 0.8, we need to figure out whether y or y squared creates a bigger value of x. And as you'll see, the blue graph is more to the right, and the y squared is more to the left, which indicates that y is bigger than y squared on 0, 1. So we know that y is bigger than y squared. And now we have everything we need to create our equation. So it's equal to the integral from 0 to 1 of y minus y squared dy. And now we just evaluate. So we get 1/2 y squared minus 1/3 y to the third from 0 to 1. And we'll notice that when we plug in 0 to this equation, we just get 0, so we can ignore that part. So we get 1/2 1 squared minus 1/3 1 to the third, just like that. And we can say that that is equal to 1/2 minus 1/3, which is then equal to 1/6, which is our final answer. So as you can see, the procedure is very similar. The formula is basically the exact same, but replace x with y. The only thing you need to be careful of is that you're kind of shifting the way you look at the graph to figure out which one is bigger than the other. And you're also shifting the way that you look at the bounds. So just be careful of that. And if you remember that, you should be fine on these types of questions.